Okay. Well, welcome to Sports Econ 101, the show where we discuss sports topics from a business perspective. I'm your host, Edward Brown, along with my co-host, Russell Jackman. Vern Glenn is off again today, but he will be here next week. At each commercial break, we're going to ask a sports trivia question. And today's trivia theme, this one's going to be tough. I decided to throw some tough ones in there. Major League Baseball teams. So we're going to have to do a little history. This one, Russell, you're not going to be happy with, I can guarantee you. I know, sorry to kind of throw that at you there, but last time I think we made it a little bit easier. This time,
well, the good news is the NFL season starts pretty soon.
Yeah.
So I'll probably start picking back up on those when we switch back to the NFL. And the NBA, of course, is my specialty.
Okay, don't worry. We won't have who name the front four for the Decatur Staleys. One of the old football.
Right.
Yeah, we won't. Don't worry. We won't do that to you. All right. This segment of Sports Econ 101 is sponsored by Pacific Private Money, still providing mortgage investments currently yielding over 7.5%, secured by real estate. Doesn't get any more conservative than that. Check them out at pacificprivatemoney.com. Stay with us. Sports Econ 101. We'll be right back.
And you're not ready.
Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. I'm Edward Brown, along with Russell Jackman. All right, first on the list, Dennis Schroeder signing with the Celtics for reported $5 million after turning down an $80 million plus Lakers extension. What's with that? Mr. Jackman? Oh, don't tell me we lost you already. Well, Russell, you'll have to come back in, but I'm looking at this and going, now what happened? Why does this guy give up $80 million? Was he hoping to get more? Did he just not like the Lakers? What's going on with something like that? To me, it just doesn't make sense. And I mean, $5 million, yeah, that's a lot of money, but holy smokes. There's something wrong with that. All right. Hey, Russell, we're going to come back to you in just a second. All right. We got Russell back. Russell, I was mentioning about Dennis Schroeder signing with the Celtics for reported $5.9 million after turning down an $80 million plus Lakers extension. What happened? Russell, you there?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes.
So what happened? What happened to?
It was probably an agent telling him and convincing him he could get more from another team, and maybe he's only wants a short-term contract so that he looks at COVID and all of that affecting salaries, but maybe he's thinking COVID will go away and salaries will go back up, and there'll be a larger salary cap, and he could take advantage of that. But I don't know. I mean, I don't think he's worth even $80 million.
No, I know. I mean, he's listen. He's a good player. He's not a great player. He's a good player. I mean, how much did he think he was going to get? Now, unless he's got some problem with the Lakers, maybe he didn't feel he was playing enough, or there's some behind the scenes personalities that didn't work. But I look at this and I'm going, how much is enough? What was he gunning for? Was he trying for $100 million, or I mean that to me.
I'm wondering if he has Latrell Sprewell's. I wonder Latrell Sprewell's agent, Latrell Sprewell, and him turning down like a $25 million contract because he said he has to feed his family.
Yeah, exactly. I think it was $100 million.
And then he didn't get any contract at all.
Yeah.
And so at least I can say for Dennis, he found himself a contract somewhere.
Yeah.
But, I'm with you. I don't think that he had the kind of leverage to – maybe he thought, well, I'm an NBA champion. I have a ring. I was part of the Lakers, and I'm a desirable free agent, and some people overestimate what their actual value is worth, and they don't find out what it's really worth until they put themselves in the free agent market and realize, especially now there's some guys that really thought
Yeah.
they were worth a lot of money, like a Kelly Oubre for the Warriors.
Yeah, he's
I mean, his phone is not exactly rung off the hook, I think, since
wow. Yeah,
now. And their other draft pick, who kind of plays that Kelly Oubre position, and they have John Toscano Anderson, who doesn't charge very much. I think he's priced himself out of Golden State. He wanted $20 million, and he's not going to get it.
Yeah, I just
he wanted $20 million a year.
I don't know. I just the way that these salaries have gone, and what's the minimum? What is it? 500,000 is the minimum in the NBA.
Well, it depends. If you're a veteran, you can get up to $4 or $5 million a year, I think,
as a minimum,
based on the veterans exception minimum.
Okay.
But for a rookie player, I think it's somewhere between 4 or 5.
And again, I know that there's a gazillion guys looking for that position, so it's very hard to make it to that level. But the way these salaries are going, I don't know. It's hard for me to stomach paying.
We keep saying that, but then Steph Curry signs for $30 million a year.
Oh, same thing. Greatest player, but I guess it's so funny because these guys. Everyone seems to talk about social justice and that kind of stuff, and it's like, well then, why don't you negotiate for $1 million a year and the other 29 million go to various charities? And I'm not trying to judge them per se, because hey, you know what, you're trying to get as much.
Well, how come that doesn't happen in corporate America?
Same thing for those people. Yeah.
Interestingly enough, I just saw a printout yesterday of the salaries for the WWE, and after the WWE has let go over 100 different people this year over the last 2 years because of COVID and other reasons, and staff and everything like that. Vince McMahon's own family earns $7.2 million. That's Hunter Hearst Helmsley, Triple H, Stephanie McMahon, and his son Shane McMahon, and they don't even wrestle.
Yeah.
They
do have the in theory, right? I mean, they have the risks because they're putting out all the money for the promotions and and all that other stuff.
Stephanie McMahon is not, and Shane McMahon is not, and Hunter Hearst Helmsley is not. Those folks aren't putting any. They have no risk at all. Shane McMahon shows up for maybe 1 or 2 WrestleMania type events, and he gets paid $2.1 million.
Sort of like the NFL commissioner Goodell. What does he make? $45 million.
Oh God, that's the most depressing number of all. Because I really do think that you could get a not so talented monkey to do exactly what Goodell does. I feel he is the most overpaid person in history.
Yeah. I would not disagree with you on that.
There's nothing that Goodell does that I think ever makes any sense, or that anyone else with any kind of temerity wouldn't be able to do a better job than he does.
Well, you know what they do? They look at the bottom line and they just give it all credit to him, in theory, right? I mean, isn't that kind of how that works? Right?
Wish I could get that in my job. All I can say is I wish I could get that in my job. Yeah. Even when he makes mistakes, he doesn't have to pay any price for it. And then when he does 1 or 2 things right, they give him a pay raise.
And it's funny because it reminds me, there was a book I read, Chester Karras, I think was his name, where it says, you don't get what you deserve, you get what you negotiate. And that's true.
Yeah.
That's kind of
probably true.
Right? I mean, like, again, Steph Curry, is he worth $30 million a year? Well, he negotiated it. And I mean, he's proven himself as a great player. $30 million a year, though, I don't know. I mean, and again, nothing personal to him because it's so much fun watching him. And
some of that,
so much for the team, Hey, you ready to go to our first?
But some of that also is based on the fact that he had such a low contract.
All right. That's true. Good. Okay. All right. We're going to go to our first hard question here. We're talking Major League Baseball teams.
Uh,
The Braves franchise began the 20th century as the Boston Beaneaters. They had one pitcher throw two 9-inning no-hitters in their first 100 seasons. Who was this pitcher? Now you should at least know the name, okay? So again, the Boston yeah, but it used to be Boston Braves. Franchise began the 20th century as the Boston Beaneaters. They had one pitcher throw two 9-inning no-hitters in their first 100 seasons. Who was this pitcher? And stay with us. You are listening to Sports Econ 101. Don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Again, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with my co-host, Russell Jackman. Mr. Vern Glenn should be with us next week. All right, here was our first trivia question. The Braves franchise began the 20th century as the Boston Beaneaters. They had one pitcher throw two 9-inning no-hitters in their first 100 seasons. Who was this pitcher?
I was just gonna guess Babe Ruth, but now that you say he was known as a Cleveland Indian, then or
Well,
Guardian.
I
Now
think,
that we're moving in.
I think he was with the Cleveland Indians. Isn't that it was Warren Spahn? And wasn't he with the Cleveland Indians? Wasn't he kind of known for being with them? For some reason,
I don't know.
Yeah, I'd have to kind of look back at the old Warren Spahn baseball card and see where he placed. Okay. And by the way, speaking of baseball, what did you think of the Field of Dreams games in Iowa? You know how, okay, so kind of going back in time, the movie Field of Dreams with Kevin Costner, popular movie. And effectively, for those who don't know or don't remember, he, build it and they will come. He gets his voice that tells him just build a baseball field in these Iowa cornfields, which ruins a lot of the cornfields because you can't grow corn there. But he just builds this beautiful stadium. And then it's like, okay, well, now what? I mean, this is.
Believe me, Iowa can spare the cornfields.
Yeah,
Let me just put it this way: Iowa. I've been to Iowa. They can spare a cornfield or two. They've got a few.
So anyway, you're thinking, okay, well, now what does he do with this baseball field in the middle of nowhere? Well, one thing leads to another, and suddenly all these old baseball players from like the
ghosts.
Ghosts basically from the 1919 Black Sox scandals. Shoeless Joe Jackson and those kind of guys come out, and they just play on the field, and somehow word gets around, et cetera, et cetera. And then by the end of the movie, there's like a line of cars waiting to get in. So for some reason, Major League Baseball decided, hey, this would be kind of fun. Let's have a real Major League game, and they actually had it between the White Sox and the Yankees. And you see the Sox wearing their old uniforms, with the S and then the big S and then the O and X in the middle. And the first game was like really exciting because the Sox scored like 9 innings in the 9 runs in the 9th inning to come back and beat the Yankees. So with a walk-off home run. So it was definitely a dream type of ending. But I thought that was kind of cool, and I guess, Iowa's big for football, and I figure if you're going to have some Major League Baseball there, people would probably drive around for quite a while to, from wherever, an hour away or whatever to get to it. What do you think? What do you think of that Field of Dreams?
Well, there have been two takes on the Field of Dreams. One is, some people like you are really proud of the nostalgia and love the fact that baseball makes the nod back to where it came from and all that. Then there's another side that says that this is actually really bad for baseball because they say that by focusing so much on, things that happened 100 years ago, that they are not bringing in new fans. And that's why younger kids are not as enamored with baseball, because it harkens to an era they can't relate to, whereas basketball and football are in the now. And, say what you want, football does not focus that much on the past greats except for the Hall of Fame. And once the Hall of Fame is over with, the football doesn't think much about the past at all. It's all about what's going on right now.
You know what? I'll bet the reason, one of the main reasons, is that for the most part, baseball hasn't changed in over 100 years. I mean, there's been little.
Right. Well, it's changed a lot, actually.
No. I mean, no. You still have. I mean, obviously, there's been like, instant replay. There's certain things like that, but for the most part, the game itself, the players, Babe Ruth probably would still be a Hall of Famer playing today, whereas, Bronco Nagurski, I don't know, he would probably still do well in today's football, but the average good player in the 40s in football couldn't compete today because the guys are so much bigger and stronger.
Yeah, but there's a lot of questions about whether the average baseball player, whether the baseball players of the 1900s, which had no black players allowed, and pretty much no in it. How great was he?
They had the Negro Leagues, and a guy like
a lot of the talent that was in the Negro League.
That's right. I mean, Josh Gibson would have been a Hall of Famer, no matter where you put him. But the mound being 60 feet 6 inches, that changed, I think, back in the 1880s, and it hadn't changed since then. And for the most part, a batter.
But what if Babe Ruth had to play against Josh Gibson, black players? He wouldn't have had the monopoly that he has on popular culture, and people would have seen Babe Ruth to be maybe he would have been a more average player if he had a greater competition.
No, that's true. No, you're. I mean, I get that. Yeah, because you have a smaller pool of people to play against. No, I mean that's an interesting point. You still got. I mean, I think part of it though is what I'm saying. For the most part, a ground ball to shortstop, if there's just a slight bobble, the runner's going to be safe if he's decent speed, and that hasn't changed in 100 years. I mean, it's very, very interesting how.
No, but when you harken back to 100 years, you harken back to an era that was not inclusive, and so modern day kids, without seeing a black player represented in Field of Dreams, for example. I mean, you won't see a single black player. You won't see a single Latin player. You won't see a single
Dominican Republic.
Dominican Republic.
Yeah. I mean, if you could. I mean, there was definitely the Negro Leagues were very popular in the 20s. Obviously it was with black people in the audience, but I mean, kids are what? Yeah, you're cutting in and out there, bro. Yeah, you must be driving underwater.
There needs to be like a Field of Dreams, really. That's part of this for.
Yeah. Man, Russell, I don't know why you're getting.
I don't know why my reception would be poor, but
get everybody off the road. Okay, well here let's. I want to move on here. So a judge.
I apologize.
Well, these things happen. Okay, so and you'll appreciate this from a legal standpoint. So a judge throws out the women's soccer lawsuit of gender discrimination for two main reasons. One, the women actually got paid more per game and in total. And also they had negotiated a guaranteed salary versus a per game payday. So the men's games, when they got canceled, because of COVID, they got zero. But the women had negotiated a guaranteed contract. So I'm kind of looking at this, and I appreciate, where the judge is coming from. I mean, how do these women who basically said, hey, listen, you know what, don't pay us per game. We want a guaranteed salary. And suddenly when they make their comparison, they're thinking, well, yeah, that's not fair. Plus, as it turns out, they did the analysis, they actually got paid more. Did you hear about that?
Oh, that's why they lost their lawsuit.
Yeah.
That's why they lost. That's why they lost the lawsuit. I'm not quite sure what was going through the attorney's head when he convinced them to file a lawsuit saying that they would get more. I don't know under what legal basis he thought he would be entitled, or they would be entitled.
Under the Me Too movement, you know. I mean, it's just
that's not a law of any type.
No.
Me Too has to do more with harassment,
Sure.
than it does payment. So I don't know why they would expect to be paid something that they basically don't deserve. I mean, I'm not trying to say that the ladies don't deserve to be paid equally as men, but you just said 10 minutes ago, you are what you negotiate yourself to be.
And I get it. I mean, listen, they negotiated a
and
guaranteed salary, and they sure look like smart people when the men's games got canceled because they got paid. The women got paid, and the men didn't. So
they got paid when the men didn't. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't necessarily know what their legal basis was, or what their premise was to say that they deserve more. And especially in this time of COVID, it's going to be hard to collect on things that people think they were owed from companies that are hurting financially.
Exactly, but hey, listen, they got a guaranteed contract, and except for acts of God maybe, but this is probably not considered an act of God, right? Yes, it's an act of Wuhan. Okay, hey, we're going to cut to our second trivia question here. Talking baseball teams. The St. Louis Browns / Baltimore Orioles had only one manager that would win 100 games in a season, and he did it 5 times. Who was this manager? That's our trivia question. Email edward@sportsecon101.com. We'll see if you know the answer to this question. Stay with us. Sports Econ 101 will be right back. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. One more time, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Russell Jackman. All right, here's our second trivia question. The St. Louis Browns / Baltimore Orioles had only one manager that would win 100 games in a season, and he did it 5 times. Who was this manager?
Earl Weaver?
Yes. Very good.
Oh, I got one right.
You got one right. And the thing is, we only have 3 trivia questions, so even if you missed the other one, that's batting 333. That'll get you in the Hall of Fame, my friend.
I'll take it. Considering how much baseball trivia I truly do know, I'll take these wins when I can get them. So.
All right. So years ago, sports betting outside of Vegas was kind of demonized, but now it looks kind of mainstream. Thoughts on how things will change in the sports world? I mean, every time you turn around now, there's some new.
Well, that's interesting. I actually want to do a legal lecture. Yeah, I would like to do a legal lecture coming up called. They have attorneys have what's called MCLEs. Where they have to do continuing legal speaker for most of the time that I've been an attorney. I've done this legal education seminars for different companies, and I want to do one on sports betting because I think that the landscape of sports betting has totally changed things. And on the one hand, I like it in the sense that it provides jobs. It takes it away from
Vegas,
the shadowy underworld of underground betting. People anyway. Even if you don't have legitimized gambling, you have people doing office pools and people betting on squares at the Super Bowl. People having people will gamble no matter what. I mean, gambling is one of the most essential elements of humanity, along with violence and sex.
Well, when you say essential, you don't mean like you need it to live.
Those are all part of.
Well, okay, so and I
You'll
assume
never have society.
when you say
You'll
it's
never have,
hey Russell, when you say it's essential,
yeah,
I assume you don't mean it's essential like you need it like food and water. It's more just like prevalent. I assume that's what you mean,
it's
right?
just, yeah, it's part of human nature. You'll never have an organized society that doesn't have gambling of some form as part
Yeah.
of it. And you look around, I mean, the lottery has been part of
Yeah.
California's uh, makeup
Hey,
for, what,
even
30
going
years now?
even going down back to biblical times, the guards gambled for Jesus's clothing. So it's even in the Bible, you know.
Well, yeah, and the dreidel
Yeah,
goes back far before biblical times. The dreidel
yeah,
goes back to prehistory. I mean, it was,
prehistory.
and so, yeah, it does. I don't think
Well,
anyone knows
I'm
when the
not sure if
first
anything can actually technically be prehistory if it's history, but you just mean a long time ago.
any kind of recorded history, any
Oh, okay.
any kind of ability for humans to record.
Yeah, but well, I was gonna say, well, I don't know when was the dreidel. I know that like they talk at Hanukkah that is a big deal, and that was I think what 160 BC with Judah and the Maccabees and all that.
Side,
But
I feel really bad for people who have things. I've got a lot of problems in my life, but period. I feel really bad. You like if you're a heroin addict and you're trying to stay off heroin, and suddenly McDonald's can sell heroin.
yeah, yeah,
It's going to be everywhere. I mean,
yeah,
gambling is going to be at every angle. I mean, that was the one thing that having it only legalized in a couple of spots
yeah.
made it so that if you wanted to gamble,
You know, you had to get on an airplane to
you had to
go
really
there.
make the effort to,
Yeah,
go to Tahoe or to go to Reno or to go to, an Indian, go
yeah,
to one of those Native American casinos, at least with some kind of effort. You had to go drive to the middle of nowhere. But the fact that people will be able to use their internet 24 hours a day to gamble, I
yeah.
don't know if people are going to be able to resist that.
No, and that's basically my point is, you know, you're like you said, you know, heroin addict, suddenly McDonald's can sell heroin. What's that going to do? I mean, they're going to be people who are going to lose their houses and they just won't be able to stop. It's kind of interesting. It's sort of like those QVC type shopping channels where there are people, not everybody, but there are definitely some people who are addicted to just constantly buying stuff they don't need. You know, shopaholics and hoarders. So yeah, I mean, at least in that case, you know, potentially you might buy something that's useful, but in betting, I mean, it's all based on, chance, assuming it's not rigged, and you're not benefiting anybody, right? I mean, you're not buying a good or
Well,
a
and
service.
as my grandfather used to say, the casinos weren't built on winners' money.
Exactly. Yeah.
All that you look at the opulence of all those casinos and how big DraftKings are and how, the millions of dollars of GoFada and these other online gambling sites, they make, hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars. And it's all because they're getting a huge cut off of the people who lose.
Yeah. And then, how much regulation
You
is there
know,
going to
they
be
they
on it?
they hand out $1 million.
But they take in 5 million.
Yeah, they hand out $1 million in prizes, but they're taking in $20 million in people who lose.
Yeah. So I wonder,
I'd take those odds every day.
I wonder how much regulation there's going to be. Like, can any Joe Blow just start a betting website?
Well, you could say the positive side of legalizing it is that it gives you the opportunity to regulate it. But if you look around, places like Atlantic City and Reno and Tahoe, you wonder how much regulation there really is going on with gambling.
Well, you know what? I think it
And
all has to do with the
when
tax
you
break.
break it down to the internet,
what I was saying is that I think the whole thing comes down to how
Yeah,
much.
but then when you break it down to the internet, your ability to regulate it even further is
harder.
because I don't know how you keep little kids from being able to use the internet.
No, that's true.
How
That's
you
coming
can
not only
stop
from the legal
kids
person, but from
from gambling.
the computer
I don't know.
guru. So Russell, can you
Yeah,
hear me?
all you have to do is get a hold of somebody's credit card.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, that's true.
Yes.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, because what I was saying is that.
Yeah, I can.
Okay, that I think really what it comes down to is these states trying to just figure out how much they can extract in tax money. I think that's why they did with the marijuana also. It's like they don't really care about, whether it's good for someone, bad for somebody, medical reason. They just go, you know what, there's just a lot of money being made underground here. And this way, at least we can tax it, for the people who are going to make it legitimate. Because in reality, what good does betting on sports do anybody? It doesn't do anybody any good, So that's my thought. Hey, I want to move on here for a minute. LeBron recruits Carmelo Anthony to the Lakers.
And you also save money. You need police effort. You don't need police to bring,
Yeah, well, that's true. I don't think that's as big a deal. So what do you think about LeBron recruiting Carmelo Anthony to the Lakers for a 1-year deal? And I'm guessing because probably they're friends, and Anthony's over 35 years old. Now he did have a good year last year, but 6 of the 17 current Lakers right now on the roster are 35 or older. That's going to be Grandpa's team pretty soon, huh?
Yeah, it is. That's where they, you mentioned it before, is that if a player decides to take such a huge salary,
Yeah,
like LeBron,
I don't know how big. I'm not sure how big this.
Like
Carmelo
Anthony,
money
for anybody else.
Yeah, but I don't think that the Carmelo Anthony deal wasn't that.
I don't know. How,
do you know how large it was? I don't think it was.
Yeah, it just no.
Yeah.
No, probably for veterans minimum, because that's all they have under the they're even over the salary cap, but they pay a huge penalty for it, and they are now just looking for guys that are willing to sign for the minimum amount so they can stuff them under the cap and have warm bodies that can play alongside LeBron and Westbrook and Davis. I mean, it really is.
Hey, Russell, Carmelo's never been on a winning team, has he?
No, he hasn't.
So that, I got to think
he's been on a winning team.
Well, I mean, a championship team.
But he's never gone to the finals.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Okay.
Oh yeah, no, not he's ever even been to an NBA finals, and I'm not even sure. He may have gone once with Denver to a conference finals, I'm thinking, but I'm not even sure he did that. So he may not have ever made it past like the second round of the playoffs.
Gotcha.
In his career. So, this is a chance for him to ride the coattails. But to be honest with you, I don't think the Lakers, as they're made up right now, have what it takes to win a championship.
I mean, they've got a few good young players,
I would still put my money better. Giannis is really coming into his own.
Oh yeah, that was pretty.
They've gotten rid of just about everybody. But the Lakers have gotten rid of everyone they've tried to develop, and that's the other thing is that should LeBron and Westbrook eventually get old and retire, they have not built anything other than just Anthony Davis. He's the only young player they have on their team that they could, build around. And
yeah, exactly.
I have a feeling that if this doesn't work out, the Lakers are going to have some hard times.
Yeah. No, that's true. And then, I don't know how many years
they're going to.
He's probably.
See, I think the Warriors did.
Right? Doesn't LeBron have a couple good years left in him? Assuming he doesn't get hurt, right?
The right thing by not trading away is really impressing a lot.
Yeah. I'll tell you, hey, Russell, we're going to go to our third trivia question here. The Colorado Rockies began their franchise late in the century in 1993. In their very first season, they had already produced their own National League batting champion. Who was that champion? So again, here's the question. Colorado Rockies began their franchise late in the century in 1993. In their very first season, they had already produced their own National League batting champion. Who was this champion? And stay with us. You are listening to Sports Econ 101. Don't touch that dial. When we come back, we're going to answer that trivia question and have some thoughts for the day, and then we're going to cut out. Stay with us. Sports Econ 101. We'll be right back.
Yeah. Sorry that
hey,
my phone.
Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Last time for today, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Russell Jackman. Next week, Mr. Vern Glenn will be with us. So the Colorado Rockies began their franchise late in the century in 1993. In their very first season, they already produced their own National League batting champion. Who was that champion? Do you have a guess? Well, you'll know the name.
Colorado.
Okay.
All I can think of is Blackman, and I know that's
no.
He's
fairly recent. Andres Galarraga. Like, remember he toured it later on in his career. He played with the Giants for a bit.
for them now. So
Yeah,
yes,
you remember Andres Galarraga?
yes. A good time, Galarraga. Yes.
Yeah, because remember he played for the Giants afterward for
Yes.
a little bit. I think he had one
Good
good
times.
career. All right,
Right.
my friend. So next week, Vern Glenn will be with us. Today, we're going to cut out. Here's our thoughts for the day. Did you hear about the man injured in a bizarre peekaboo accident? Well, he's in ICU.
Oh,
And then I accidentally fell asleep smoking e-cigarette. And when I woke up, my whole house was on the internet. There we go. We got a laugh out of you on that one. I figured that's a computer joke, so you'll have to remember that one. All right.
And I want to give a quick rest in peace to Dominic Dinucci, the legendary pro wrestler who died this week.
Boy, a lot of
earlier last week.
Recently. All right.
Too many.
Again, too young too. A lot of these guys. So tune in next week to Sports Econ.
Oh well, he was 90, so
well, that's okay.
Dominic made it to 90, so he was all right. But yes, I'll let you finish out the show.
All right, tune in next week to Sports Econ 101. We'll be discussing sports topics from a business perspective and asking more sports trivia questions. Thanks for listening. On behalf of our team, I'm Edward Brown, your host. We'll see you next week.
Adios, America.
So long.